Good morning, everybody. I'm sitting here, I'm getting ready to start studying for my NASM. I have to take a midterm this week for the guided study course so that I can recertify with personal training before we head over to Frisco, Texas. And this is an interesting move because it's across the US and it's about a 15-hour drive, and we don't have a lot of stuff to move with us. We have our furniture that we bought once we came back to the US from Grand Cayman, and we have our two cars. So we're with every move. One of my friends that I met when I was living in Grand Cayman talked about how, every move is an adventure, and every move certainly gives you different lessons. Hi, Lamont. Lamont's in South Texas. Caitlin is so excited to move to Texas. We were taking a walk the other day, and she's like, "I'm cowgirl Caitlin, yeehaw!" She's so excited, and Jack is super excited too. And I'm getting more excited. It's just the logistics of the move. We had a man from a moving company, which is what really prompted me to come on here and do this live video. Um, but he came over yesterday just to assess what we have because moving companies, there's certain things that we've learned. My cat's walking all over me. To look out for. Some companies they pay third parties. So I had signed up. Oh my God, it has been crazy. I signed up on one website talking about our move date. And then since I signed up on that, I had a million spam phone calls. And so I haven't been answering my phone because it's just been one after the other. But anyway, this company I found on Facebook, and they're local to the Jacksonville area. And the gentleman came over yesterday just to look at what we have to move. And they guarantee your ship dates. That's cool, Lamont. Too bad you're not here because you can move us to Texas. So this company, they'll package everything up, and Jack is very much like me in many ways. He is a little boy that will speak up if he believes something is wrong, and he will speak out if he believes something is wrong. And I can't fault him because I am the same, and I always have been since I was his age and younger. So this I'm very proud of him, but it puts you in a very uncomfortable position during the moment and a teachable moment. And so this gentleman came from this moving company to look at what we have to move. And like I said, it's not a lot. I probably have less clothing and material items than men. And the gentleman was talking about how some companies, they'll just pick people up off the street, and some companies, they'll have some rough looking people. And Jack goes, "It doesn't matter what they look like." And I was like, yes, Jack, you know not to judge people based on their appearance. And as somebody who has been judged based on my appearance for a lot of my life, when I was younger, I was teased because of the way I looked, whether it was my nose, my ears, my breast development, my weight. And then growing older, I had people judge me based on, in some places, the way I look, the color of my skin, and the color of my highlighted hair, even though, as you can see, I'm not naturally blonde. You can see, now that my hair has grown out, my natural red highlights yeah, Lamont, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida now. So, it's funny because Business Insider, a reporter, reached out to me a couple days ago, and I just checked my business email yesterday, and it's talking about Frisco, Texas, and what I offer with my business. I have an LLC, and I never thought I would enjoy Florida. Like, another doctor in one of the physician groups that I'm in, she was talking about getting out of New York and places to go because her and her husband's jobs have been affected. And I shared that there are a lot of New Yorkers down here in Florida, and I am afraid of crossing paths with an alligator. That was my biggest fear of coming up to Florida. And uh, so I was like, I've surprisingly really enjoyed Florida while we've been here despite the pandemic, despite life being disrupted. And another physician within that group said that the rest of New Yorkers are in Texas. So I just found that really funny. And the gentleman from the moving company yesterday, he had shared that uh, about 40%, hi Kim, about 40% of the people moving from Florida that their company is servicing are going to Texas. So I didn't know. Money Magazine, I think it was, shared that Frisco, Texas, where we're heading to, is like the number one city to live in the U.S. now. So we'll see. We'll see what all of the hype is about once we get there in 7 weeks. But it's an adventure. I thought about maybe moving. We called pods. Those are expensive, and in comparison to other options that we have looked at, and their reasoning was that you get a pod for a month, but we don't need a pod for a month because we have so little, relatively little to transport because of leaving everything behind in Grand Cayman because of the black mold. And then I thought about maybe getting a U-Haul, but the logistics of that with two kids, you can't really do that. And then our cats, that would be not really feasible. So hi Suniti. And so then we're thinking that we'll probably ship our cars. So we have two cars, and I'd probably rent a minivan like we did. So when we came up here, so the kids and I stayed in Florida for a month from January 15th to February 15th, 2020, and we lived as nomads. We went from Miami. We came up initially because Caitlin was supposed to get her teeth fixed because the mold destroyed them. And that was confirmed by a dentist and his dad, who actually trained at U of D Mercy, which was really comforting back in Detroit. And then we went to Marco Island, and then we went to Hollywood, and then we went back to Miami. And Tim had been going back down to Cayman because he was still employed with the government. And he was penalized because he left that job without giving 3 months notice, yet his family was extremely sick from black mold, and we didn't have a choice. And then he got a temporary position up here in Jacksonville with a company that subcontracted him then to a small Christian school to teach PE, which worked in his favor because even though with COVID-19 he got a pay cut, he still had a position. So now Tim's waiting if his current boss, gets one of the small business loans. He's been told that he and the other employees will be back paid. So that would be a huge blessing. So we wait and we see on that. He got one of the loans that he applied for, and now he's waiting on another one. So Tim's job was affected from that. And then he had been applying, and there's a really nice county around here, St. Johns County, and everybody in this area is like, move to St. Johns County. But Tim would look, and there were no jobs, and he had applied in, my girlfriend had told him about Prosper, Texas. He had applied in places in the Texas region, and he was offered, the night before he was offered the job, I was praying because we don't have health insurance since we moved up here. And with COVID-19, that's an unsettling feeling. And I know there's a lot of people in the US that don't have health insurance. And the morning after I prayed for for Tim to receive a job that would provide our family health insurance again, he was offered a job with Dallas ISD. So that was a huge blessing. But moving, I shared in another post, this will be my 10th home. And I grew up in St. Clair Shores, and then my first apartment that I moved out to on my own was in Clinton Township. I was studying for my MCAT, and I was working at multiple Metro Detroit gyms teaching group fitness. And then I became a certified personal trainer, and then I started working at Lifetime. And then I got accepted to medical school, moved back in with my parents for a couple months, and then went up to Okemos, Michigan, which is right outside of East Lansing. And then I started my third year medical school clinical rotation. So I ended up having to move back down to Clinton Township, where I stayed for another 4 years. And then when I was 6 months pregnant with Jack, Tim and we moved to Grand Cayman. That was supposed to be a leap of faith. That's where we had our destination wedding. And then with the way things are set up on that island, there are not tenancy laws. And when you rent, which a lot of expats do, we moved often. So we had a home in Northside, and then we lived in Town for another 4 years. And we went to the first black mold filled home, which started making us sick right from the beginning of moving in there. But we were in financial situations that made us stuck. And the cost of living there was rising, and didn't really realize how much the black mold was affecting my health until it was too late, which is common. And so that was in Georgetown. And then we moved to another home, paid more money per month in rent, thought it was a great place, looked beautiful. I actually once said that it was the most beautiful place that I had ever lived in, just to find out this place was in West Bay, right by where Tim used to work, just to find out that there was black mold inside the walls and throughout the air ducts, which kept making me sick and kept bringing me to the ER. I thought it was residual from the home in Georgetown, but we were still living in black mold, much to our surprise, and that was really disappointing. And then we tried to escape from that home, and we went to a hotel just to find out that that hotel was filled with black mold too. And when we were sitting in that hotel one night, Jack was like, "Mama, look up in the sky." And there was an arrow, and I plotted it because I'd been talking to my girlfriend who lives in Prosper, Texas, and put it on a map. It pointed us right to Texas. And then I ended up getting interviewed at a detention center because I spoke out publicly about all of the tenancy issues, and one of the landlords who failed to return our security deposit at the first black mold filled home. And that was terrifying. And then life brought us up here the very next day. So Caitlin was supposed to get her teeth fixed, and she never got them fixed. After 2 consultations, we got no new information. And then with insurance logistics, Tim ended up leaving his job before they even were able to get that straightened out. So thankfully, outside of the mold, all of my symptoms have markedly improved. And Caitlin's teeth, they don't hurt anymore being outside of the mold. The black mold affected my teeth too. I ended up having a dental extraction, and then 2 of my teeth on the right always hurt. And the root canal specialist said there was an underlying issue. And that was the underlying issue. Mold spores can actually get into your gums and your soft tissues. I also used to always have like this full feeling in my ears as if there was water in my ears, and that's gone. And then I was diagnosed with dysautonomia there, which is I would stand up for a couple minutes and I felt like I was going to pass out. When I'd walk down the stairs at our home in West Bay, it felt like my legs were going to give out underneath me, which was really scary because our bedroom was upstairs. So, yeah, so we lived a nomadic life, and then Tim got offered this job in Jacksonville. We had never been here before, and then we picked him up from the airport with our cats, and we ended up missing our connector flight by 2 minutes by the time we got through TSA and got to the other side of the airport. So we took a minivan, and we drove the 5 hours up to Jacksonville. And so, Jack and Caitlin, they're 7 and 4, so that was probably the longest they've ever driven, because from one side of Grand Cayman to the next, you can get there in an hour. So Jacksonville, we went from this tiny little island in the middle of the Caribbean Sea to Jacksonville, which is like the biggest landmass within the U.S. It was a bit of a culture shock. So now we have a 15-hour drive, to get across from Florida to Texas. So It's gonna be an experience. Like I said, we don't have much to move, but it's just the logistics of getting our kids, our cats, and our belongings there, and then to set up life. The people we have our next home already, and it's another new construction home. And that, well, it's an apartment. We're in a new constructed apartment now, but the one we're moving to, it was opened in 2019, and people had mentioned humidity in Texas and Florida. Tim actually looked up one day the humidity levels, and both Texas and Florida were like in the 40 percentiles, and he looked at Cayman and it was in the 80 percentiles. So we're definitely familiar with that, and we're familiar with the effects that humidity can have on homes. I've been watching these, they're so addicting. I've been watching like House Hunters and, like the extreme home makeovers. And one woman, I'm just going to scroll through here really quick. One, thanks for sharing your information, Lamont. I'll check that out, and then I'll just compare it with other. I'll look at the logistics with everything since we're in Jacksonville. So, but one of the things that I had seen on one of these, it was the extreme home makeover. This woman bought a home. What a nightmare! So she left a bad environment. She separated from her husband, took her children with her, tried to, make it as a single mom, and then she bought a home. And she's really hardworking woman. She taught dance and she worked another job, but she went into this home and she started, they wanted to make it their own. Well, behind, I know with black mold being hidden, we definitely empathize with this. But this woman bought this home just to find out that the whole interior, like the whole structure of the wall, had been eaten away by termites. And so she and her kids were living in the dining room of her parents' home. And she had a picture where she had told her sons that they would have their Christmas tree once they were able to get the home the way they needed it. But they didn't have the money. They had put the money into this house. And so, I had been looking at different homes, maybe, to purchase a home because we're so tired of renting. But then you look at, what's on the market, and having, lived somewhere thinking it was a beautiful place just to find out that there was hidden mold and you couldn't do any of the preventative measures like, running a dehumidifier, and an air purifier, or making sure that there's good ventilation in a home, making sure that you're checking your pipe. These are things that I learned living at the Sundial property in West Bay in Grand Cayman. Checking your pipes every 6 months. I learned to make sure there's not leaks, because when you are living in a place where there's high humidity, especially like Grand Cayman where the humidity is really high, that mold can grow really fast. And then once you get significant black mold growth, you can have very detrimental health effects, which I obviously experienced very personally. And I shared those videos and pictures while we were going through it. So, yeah, we learned a lot. And, looking and moving forward, as much as we didn't want to rent again, going somewhere, we had never been in Jacksonville before, yet we moved there. We've never been in Frisco before, but we're moving there. And if we love it there, it'd be nice to settle down. Like, this is my 10th home. So it's like you realize. And then Jack was like, well, it's more than 10 homes, because when we were living as nomads, we had a lot of homes there. And, it's kind of cool for our kids to know that our home is wherever we're at. It's not necessarily a dwelling, just kind of like the same as church, as the people. It's not the building. So I think that's actually going to serve a good lesson for our kids, despite the instability with moving around because of really issues outside of our control. And we're moving in the hot months, and that was something a few people said. They're like, oh, you're moving during the hot months, and it's like, yep. And it's not our first rodeo, as some people would say. And when we moved to, hey Jack, when we moved to, I'm doing a video, Um, when we moved to Cayman, I was 6 months pregnant with Jack, and that was August 29th, 2012, and I thought I was going to die. But I didn't. I survived that. So we'll get through this too, despite the warmer months. So, and I like the heat. It's definitely less than what we experienced in Grand Cayman. It's funny because down here in Florida, people are talking about how hot it is, but we're cold because we've been acclimated to island climate. So it's an adventure. But anyway, I look forward to sharing the Business Insider article once that gets published. It's definitely a lighter article in comparison to all of the published articles that I was involved with last year with my former medical school dean. So it's new beginnings, and it's a process. And I shared last night a post. I was reflecting when I was taking my bath, just about life and the state of the world, and just what I see on social media during a time of a pandemic when people really need extra love, and yet you see fear and you see all of this discord and people fighting, and it's just, sometimes you just have to sign off of social media. It can serve a good purpose, but and when I reread through my book manuscript and I see how much of a good purpose social media served in my life during the time of my accident. And then I think about, when Facebook was originated, I was in medical school, and it was a completely different platform and an audience, and it's just really interesting to see how Facebook itself has evolved. But I think some people need to just step back, and doctors don't go to school to see how they can screw you over or take over your lives, or you don't get paid a ton of kickbacks from big pharma. It's funny, the misinformation that you see out on social media. So doctors really, for the most part, I've seen the bad in medicine too. I've gone through independent medical exams, through my legal cases stemming from my accident. So I know that some people are persuaded by greed, but the vast majority of people who became doctors and nurses, they're working from a place of healing. So I think people really need to remember that most people are not out to get you. Some might be, but most people are not. So anyway, be kind, be loving, stay well, and thanks for tuning in. Tamana, why are you moving? Well, I shared about that, so you can listen to this. I'm going to hop off of this in a minute. But the main reason we're moving right now is because Tim got a full-time teaching position, and there's opportunity for me in Texas also. So we'll see how everything turns out once we get there and what doors open. But I'm excited. Tim's excited. New beginnings. So it's been an adventure. So I shared, if you're tuning in now, I shared why we're moving, my history of moving, all places that I've lived. This will be my 10th home. And it's, who likes moving? Like, I feel, thanks, Tamana. Yeah, the actual process of moving sucks. Like, I'm a highly organized person, OCD kind of organized. Like, my clothes are color coordinated. But so I've got packing and moving down to a T, but it's just the actual process of moving. I don't know. I don't know who would love moving 10 times in their lives. So it's, and I talked about how I wasn't excited to move up to Florida when we did. And it was just we're passing through here as a transition point. And my biggest fear was alligators, but I've really liked Florida so far. One of the guys, though, this is crazy. His name's Mickey. He had come because when we moved in here, we moved into this apartment we ended up staying at a hotel because we didn't have any furniture for a couple days. So it was like around February 17th, 2020 that we moved into this apartment, just in time for everything in the world to close down. And we were having an issue with like the bath filling up with hot water. So this man came. His name was Mickey, and he shared, like, his family had moved around, and I'm pretty sure he said his dad was in the military. So we've got quite a few like military people around here and living in this current complex, which is cool to see the different, helicopters and, military air transport vehicles flying by. That's been neat for me and our family. So, but he had shared his brother and him were swimming. And this is my biggest fear because I love water. Like, I want to go sit by the water all the time. And our kids grew up around water their whole lives they've always been around water, living on an island, born and raised there. And so he had shared that his brother, there was actually a newspaper clipping that he showed me because his brother had just passed away. But as kids, his brother got snagged by an alligator and he got away, but he was in the hospital, and he showed me this black and white newspaper clipping, and they had shared that at his brother's funeral. And I was like, oh my God, it's terrifying. And there was a bridge by us, and one of our neighbors shared the other day that he saw an alligator get out of the water. And I was like, that is so scary. So I was like, okay, we're good in Texas, get away from the alligators. And then I found out that there was an alligator found in one of their rivers over there. So I'm like, I am so scared of alligators. But they're fast too. We were walking through one neighborhood, and we had asked the one woman, because she's always got cats outside of her home. We had socially distanced. We asked this woman about, if she has seen an alligator, and she's like, yeah, they're terrifying and they're really fast. And ugh. So yeah, that's been one of my biggest fears with living in Florida, but I have not yet to see one. I kind of want to see one, but I don't want to see one. So yeah, so thanks for the love, Tamana. Nice to chat with you. So yeah, keep the love and prayers coming as we take on another adventure. This has been one crazy journey. I shared on another post that my God, before my accident, I would never have thought that I'd ever leave Michigan, let alone the US, let alone live in Florida, let alone move to Texas. But I also shared that when I was a kid, my dad was offered a job in Texas, but my mom didn't want to move. She's, it's interesting because my mom's mom, my grandma, was a really big influence in my life. And we had kitchen table talks like this all the time growing up. And she ended up passing away when I was 17. She was 64. She's part of the reason why preventative medicine, my dad, and other reasons are why I'm so passionate about preventative medicine. Because, two of the people that I love the most, they had preventative risk factors, and I wish I would have had them longer than I did. But, like my grandma, I think about her, and she didn't have a lot of money, but she had a lot of wisdom, and she had a lot of love that she shared with me. She always accepted me. She never talked down to me. She left a legacy in me, which I get to share with my children, and that's so special to me. But I just think about her and the fact that for most of her life, she really didn't go anywhere. She was in Warren, Michigan, and she was at home, and she'd talk about how she'd go outside, and all of her neighbors would come to talk to her, and she was a special woman. But I just look at how much different my life journey has been, and how uncomfortable and how much uncertainty I've walked through. And it's definitely not been my plan. And I feel like everything that I've gone through really prepared me for this time of this pandemic, because a lot of what I'm seeing globally now is stuff that I experienced personally when I felt all alone, and I felt like people didn't understand. I feel like the world's understanding now a lot of what I went through, and I share that in my book manuscript. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. I shared in another post yesterday in a group of physicians, because there was like a disagreement within a family about, venturing out, and it was really hard for one of the spouses. And I had just shared part of my journey and about how, I got hit by a semi truck, yet I get in the car every day. We can't live in fear. The whole I've been quiet about this, but you have to have you have to have balance, and you have to look at this from a holistic aspect, I believe, too. You have human rights, you have, and of course, there's, a pandemic, but you still have human rights that you have to take into account, and that includes working and housing, and people need to be able to sustain themselves. And then you look at what was the purpose of the stay-at-home orders. It was, to flatten the curve and not to overwhelm the healthcare professionals, not to necessarily stay at home indefinitely, because, I don't stay at home because I got hit by a semi truck, and people die from motor vehicle accidents every day. And a lot of people die from motor vehicle accidents every day. And you can't live your life in fear. And your mental health really needs to be factored in. It has to be a sense of balance. I mean, I think going out, taking your walks, socially distancing yourself is wise right now. Washing your hands. Yeah, you won't catch me and my family in a packed restaurant still. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But I think that everybody has to individually, you know, weigh weigh your options and balance things from a holistic perspective. So I read another article today talking about the potential for schools not being open in the fall, and we were considering putting our kids into schools, and in Frisco, Texas, they have really good school districts. So my computer is going to die. So I had shared with another one of my friends that if need be, they could always homeschool with Abeka, which is the homeschooling curriculum that we use. And Abeka has been so good to us. We ended up losing all of Jack's homeschool books. I'm going to plug this in before it dies. We ended up getting all of Jack's homeschooling books replaced through Abeka's disaster relief program. And that was a couple $100 worth of books. And, I shared with her, a lesson that I learned from living a nomadic life between January and February of 2020. I'm washing my linens, so, but I told her just take it day by day, day by day, moment by moment. And when it gets to school time, register, if you need to register your kids for school. But if you don't want to use, a school program and the way that they send home curriculum, you could always try Abeka too. So it's worked for us. It's a good curriculum. It's a lot of work. It's definitely a commitment, but Jack has excelled with it. So that's always an option for people. I think this time of pandemic is definitely a time where you can reflect on life and maybe reassess how you do life. So yes, we did. We bought all new furniture. This is a Tempur-Pedic bed, and it keeps you cool. So the thing that the moving company guy said yesterday is that they have to lay flat. So we got all of our furniture. We didn't have anything. Like, our kids know what it's like to not have a bed to call their own. They know what it is like to not have a home to call their own. They know it's like not to know where they're going to live next. Like when we were moving around, thank God we had the financial provision to do that, because I fought the long-term disability company for 8 years. That was quite the battle. I learned a lot of invaluable insight that showed me how the world works. So, yeah. So we have our couch, our love seat, our TV stand, our TV, our kitchen table, our kitchen chairs. In both rooms, we've got a tall dresser, a long dresser, a bed frame, box frame, and a mattress. And then the kids each have their own beds now, which that I think is the most comforting thing. For the first time in their entire lives, they're moving, but with their own belongings. They get to move with their own beds, and I think that's a little ounce of stability for them. And they're really excited this time. And the place really looks a lot like this place. Everything's brand new construction, and that was really important for us, just with the mold consideration. And in this in this lease contract and the one with the next apartment, unlike in Cayman, they actually have a page that specifically talks about mold and mold prevention, like communicating with them if there's a water leak because they can't fix it if they don't know about it. So, it's in Cayman, I feel like it was really hush hushed. Like Cayman runs on tourism, but your health is so funny because some people expected me to be quiet about the mold exposure in Cayman. I know people right now who are suffering from it, who have messaged me, who are still living there. And, I'm trained as a doctor. I have a degree in medicine. I have another degree in psychology. I am passionate about preventative health, public health, now environmental health. And for me, I feel just like when Jack spoke up, about the moving guy, about it doesn't matter what people look like, it matters if they can have a good character and they can do the job. But for people to expect me to stay silent, one, I've not stayed silent since I was a little girl, but for people to expect me to stay silent and not speak out about something that I feel like I have a moral, ethical, and professional obligation to speak out about, that's not where I belong. So I'm very grateful to be back here, and I look forward to seeing how doors open up, just like the reach out from the Business Insider reporter. I look forward to seeing more doors open up, doors that are not forced, but doors that are naturally meant for me to walk through. So in Cayman, there were a lot of limitations for me, because if you are not Caymanian, you can't operate a business. So even though I had a Delaware-based LLC, I had to be really wise with doing any business work because of the fact that I was living in Grand Cayman, and it always made me feel uncomfortable. And then, you can't, as an expat, you really can't work part-time somewhere because they pay for a work permit. And so that really wasn't an option. And I was just so extremely sick from black mold the last 2.5 years that we lived there. So I had exercise intolerance. I couldn't breathe. And it really was about survival for the last 2.5 years. It just increasingly got worse and worse. So one of the women that live in Florida, live in Texas. My friend Kurt told me about her. She's Ted Nugent's wife, Charmaine, I think is her name. And they moved from Michigan. Their dream house, they came to find out that it was killing them. It was black mold filled. And this is Michigan. And so it's everywhere. But it's whether or not you've got, toxic mycotoxins and levels of mold that can make you extremely sick. And that's what was happening to their family. And they ended up going to the Texas area. And I learned that she's doing a documentary on this, or she's working on a documentary. So, yeah, so it's something that I think a lot of people don't put enough emphasis or attention to, but they really should. So anyway, Caitlin's back. I can hear her, so I'm gonna hop off. But nice chatting with everybody. Lamont, I'll talk to you more privately, and then we'll compare things and just look at logistics for that. So thanks for tuning in with me. If you're listening to this later, let me know. Say hi. So it's nice to chat to people. All right, take care. Let's see. And this. There you go. Bye.